I'd like to welcome you to a special presentation. This is a part of a continuing series on self-empowerment, trying to provide some insights as to how we can live a more balanced existence, and wherever possible, asking questions that allow us to challenge just basic beliefs. I believe that most people do not die of disease. I believe that heart disease and cancer and diabetes and overweight, depression and anxiety, fibromyalgia are all extensions of a flawed belief system. Now, we've all seen it. We've all seen people who we care about, who we treasure, and consistently they make inappropriate choices. And we say, how can someone so smart make such foolish decisions? Repeatedly. It's not like you do something once and you learn from it. We don't. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to explore what happens when we have an unexamined life. One of the first things we should do when examining our life is to be honest. And what happens when we're completely honest, when there's no ego, when there's nothing to defend, when we're not trying to impress anyone, we're just trying to look at things for what they are. As a scientist, one of the very first rules I have learned is simply examine what is. Even if I don't understand what I'm saying or the mechanisms of how it works, I simply have to be honest about what is occurring. Years ago, I was asked to do a debate on homeopathy, in support of homeopathy. The person they brought on to challenge me had no background in homeopathy, had never interviewed any physician using it or patient who had tried it, but was absolutely certain that it couldn't work. Now, why was this person certain? Because he said, well, we've examined vials of homeopathic solutions and there's nothing there. It's just water. So the rationale was, if there's just water, no matter what the results are, it can't be due to anything that the water did. It had to be from a placebo. And yet, when it was done comparing homeopathy with placebo, homeopathy consistently outperformed placebo, which showed it wasn't placebo. There was a statistically significant benefit from using homeopathy. Well, then now you get to where the belief system. If they're saying we need good science before we can make an analysis of what's right and wrong, and we give them good science, and we prove our point, and then they don't accept the point because there's something they're not examining. They're not examining the truth. Instead, in between what they saw is what they believed. And in the end, it's what you believe that determines what you see. How often in our lives have we had the truth, we weren't able to look at the truth of the person and the person's beliefs? If someone consistently shows you that their beliefs are so flawed, their mind so closed, their perception so limited, their dimension of behavior so skewed, that they have to edit and vet virtually everything that comes into their existence, then why should you be surprised when whatever it is you're trying to share with that person doesn't work? What did you expect? And how many times have we been disappointed when someone didn't honor our expectations of them, when we never ask a more fundamental question? What is the foundation upon which this person's very values are resting? Part of our problem in our life, and this is an important point, is that in Orthodox religion, which tries its best in a noble way to get people at a higher moral level, from the rabbis to the popes to the mullahs, people are trying to make us more connected with our spiritual. How many times have teachers tried to inspire us at an intellectual level? Counselors at an emotional level? Whether it's Deepak or Andrew Weil or Patricia Sun or Wayne Dyer, good information coming from individuals who care about us. And they're trying to say connect at the heart, and someone else connect at the spirit, and someone else connect at the brain, someone else actualize your full potential. We've heard all this, right? 100 times. And I don't care how old you are, you'll never be old enough to have heard all the inspirational, motivational speakers for the last century. And we've always had them. Then why are we a mess today? It certainly isn't because we've had too few positive words said or written. Not at all. We've had a plethora of information. Our glass is overflowing. What I feel is flawed is our foundation, our primal energy. Now, almost no one's talking about the primal energy, the basic chi. And yet anyone who's ever built a house knows the very first thing you do, you have a solid foundation. You don't have a solid foundation, I don't care what you build, it will crumble, right? And yet in our own lives, we put kids out into the world without a basic foundation and then wonder why, when they're challenged, more often than not, they crumble. We don't even give the ingredients for a good foundation. Motivation is not enough. Inspiration is not enough. Only by actualization and challenging the system will you know whether or not what you believe in is real enough to support everything that you want. Your desires, your ambitions, your dreams, everything has to rest on something, right? Well, that something, if it is at all flawed, a minuscule hairline fracture in your belief system, it crumbles in time. First time it's chronically stressed, you will implode. So people who think they have courage, think they have power, think they are self-determined, think that they are self-motivated, and then boom, they hit that wall of life. A reality they're not taught in any classroom. And the foundation's not there to support them because no one's examined it. We've assumed that as long as you all get the basics, that somehow then you have to go above the basics. So we're all running around looking for something above the basics. Do you follow what I'm saying? We're trying to focus on up here. We're trying to heal our hearts. We're trying to evolve our emotions. We're trying to connect intellectually. We're trying to listen to Krishnamurti or Gandhi. We're reading those statements. We want to connect, but if our foundation hasn't been developed to absorb and assimilate, then it's all ethereal. It just dissipates. It's like a great song or a movie or a play or a book or a poem. In the moment that we hear it, we're inspired by it, it moves us, we feel a connection, we get goosebumps, but 20 minutes later, it's like it never happened. We adapt instantaneously based upon our primordial conditioning to whatever environment we're in. Two people sharing a bond, what they call a love bond. There's a crisis. There was no fundamental strength within the character. One crumbles, the other stays. One readapts and starts life instantly all over again. We can adapt anything, and we do. You know the problem when you adapt constantly? You adapt to someone who's negative around you, and suddenly after a while, you don't hear the negativity as you did the first time. Someone who can only speak to you in vulgar terms, and then one day, you don't even mind the vulgarity. Someone who's cynical and bitter about everything, no matter what idea comes up, they have to put it down because they only want their idea to be righteous. Do you ever see those people? The only time that they ever agree with you is when you've agreed with them, but they never commend you for the work you've done, the ideas you have, the legitimacy of your thoughts. They look at everything as a problem that they're alone capable of solving. The acknowledgement has to come to them. You know, at a certain point, you don't even try to give input anymore. Because you know, they're not going to listen to you. And how about all the people that only call you when they get a problem? And all they talk about is their story. Most people in life only have their story. Every time you talk with them, they say, let's go to the storybook. Page 27. The hymn of my life. I realize you've heard it before, and I'm going to have to give it again. I suffer, therefore I am. And you think, God, can't we do something else but hear about you? No, but I don't have anything else to talk about except me. I did this and I did that and I'm feeling this and I had this thought and that thought. Well, so what? Let's do it easier. Put down your script. Put down your long-living bio. Close this little book called My Story. Then relate to me. What are you going to talk about then? Well, there's going to be a lot of silence, which is good. And a lot of people don't have the need to tell their story. Instead, they feel comfort in their silence. There's no intimidation, there's no threat, there's no sense of loss of space. Some people think that the only value in time is what you fill it with. And therefore, every moment has to be filled. And if it's with someone, it's chatter. Endless chatter. We as a culture never shut up. And some people, even when they're sleeping, their lips are moving. Well, you know it's boring, isn't it? If you're going to tell me something I don't know. Then you got my attention. You're going to share something I haven't felt. Then you really got my attention. When I go into a restaurant, I want to see something on the menu I haven't eaten. I want that variety of life. Now, is there any reason we shouldn't have variety of ideas? No. Would you rather eat the same food every day or variety? Would you rather wear your hair the same way, the same clothes, same color, or variety? Why are we so limited? Your belief system, the foundation. We are simply building upon everyone else's flawed belief system. And when you do that, you're limited. You got to make all your decisions in a very narrow frame of reference. So how can we change this? Well, the first thing we can do is we can ask, what are the byproducts of not being completely honest? First question, what are the byproducts of not being completely honest? How about living where you never know what is real? Because honesty, a universal truth, is the only thing that's tangible. Because universal truth, something that's factually true, is the only thing that can allow us to transcend adaptation. Everything else will cause us to adapt. Truth allows us to transcend. So when we're faced with a problem, if we're dealing in truth and we're not afraid of it and we're not defending it, then we can automatically shift and change. So if you're a meat eater, you can become a vegetarian. If you're sedentary, you can exercise. If you're a person that's always looking at the negative, you can find the positive. If you're a person that only sees the world you live in and nothing outside of it, you can tear down those walls and connect with the larger universe and all the people in it. If you've always been about me and my story, now you can listen to other people and seek out something other than your story to share, what you are as a human being. Like kids. Kids are fascinated by other kids. They love to look at other kids. They love to play with other kids. We start losing that ability. That's where our beliefs keep limiting us, packing us tighter, 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 until one day we wake up and we psychically have nowhere to go. We have overcompressed. That's the danger of the belief. And yet we're trying to solve our problems up here. The problem is not up here. The problem is not with the spiritual messages or the metaphysical messages or the emotional messages or even the nutritional messages. The problem's primal. It's in the very honoring of the self-evolved, autonomous person with free will. The most dangerous person in the world is a person with true free will. Because how are you going to control them? How are you going to manipulate them? How are you going to play them? They're not Democrat or Republican, conservative or liberal. They're not a race. They're just a free spirit. And you know, when you become that free spirit, you see everything. Because only when you're no longer what you are can you see what you're not. As long as you stay what you are, you can't see you. If I asked you to define you, and I had a 4,000-pound elephant, you would go right up within 1 inch and look at it and say, I'm looking at the elephant. No. You're looking at one tiny piece of an elephant, and you're going to describe it from one piece. That's a flawed perception. You have to get a distance to get perception and perspective. we never allow ourselves to have perspective, because we never allow ourselves to have a distance from what we have been too close to. We're too close to our pain. We're too close to our suffering. We're too close to our anger. We're too close to our disappointment. We're too close to all of the infinite ideas we've had that live out there as potentials. But how are you going to ever actualize that if the very basis of what you're sitting on continues to crack and falter with fault lines? They're never going to be self-actualized. And never substitute experience for growth. You can have 1,000,000 experiences and have no growth to show for it, because we were never honest about why we did something and what it meant to us. Experiences are only meaningful when we can self-actualize through self-awareness. And that should be effortless. You got to work on something, you haven't learned it. When you connect with what's real, it's seamless. It's like Tai Chi, where the energy simply flows. When we're always struggling, I got to struggle with my diet. I got to struggle to get up in the morning. I got to struggle to be nice. I got to struggle, not to have the cup of coffee. I got to struggle not to, curse. Got to struggle not. Well, then what are you struggling against? There's nothing there, is there? There doesn't exist. So when we're doing this struggling, we're struggling against what? What are we struggling against? What? Ourselves. But what part of ourselves? What part? No, it's not your ego. You didn't create your ego.
The belief system.
The belief system, the foundation, the primal urge has locked us in cement. It's like someone poured cement around your feet and says, now make a great life and go out there and really excel. And you're up here struggling. Your up part of your body is struggling like crazy, and you're not going anywhere. All this effort, look how hard I work, how hard I struggle, how hard I... And then you say, well, shouldn't I have more for it, more joy, more happiness, more respect, more something? And the answer is, well, if everyone else around you is in the same concrete, then no one's gone anywhere, have they? Because at the end of the day, take a look where you are now versus where you were 10 years ago. You think you've evolved? No, not even a millimeter. Because we don't grow incrementally in the old-fashioned way. We grow exponentially in a quantum way when we are doing it effortlessly. Growth should be an effortless process. If there's an effort in your growth, then it's not your growth that you're fighting for. It's trying to maintain the old position of the foundation because that's what's comfortable and known, against where you want to go. We've all experienced that. We've experienced the hesitancy when we knew it was in our best interest to let go, and we didn't. How many times you worked at jobs that didn't honor you, had friends that betrayed you, lived in environments that polluted you, commuted and stressed you, and all you did was waste time, the one thing you can't relive. And then one day you wake up and you're just kind of apathetic. You've heard a lot, you've seen a lot. Well, why are you right back to where you started? Just older, but not wiser. It's because we were growing on the wrong levels. That's important to understand. Do you understand what I'm saying? If you grow on the wrong level, you've not grown. And yet it seems easier, it's more exciting, it's more enticing, it's more poetic to grow up here. But at the end of the day, I've seen the people coming out of the meditation studios downtown and going right back into a stressful environment. Then I've seen them doing yoga before they go into a stressful commute. And I've seen them reading something from a book to go into a stressful relationship. Well, that's like taking some vitamin C and then shooting yourself with heroin. There's a game afoot. Life should be effortless. Not that they're not crises, not that they're not challenges. There are. But we should approach them as if this is an opportunity to see the truth in what we live by. And if we can see the truth through this challenge, then we're able to grow from it. If we cannot see the truth in what we've been challenged by, then we haven't grown at all. Secondly, how does honesty affect our search for acceptance? How many times have we wanted to be accepted, and being accepted was more important than whether or not we should have been accepted? How many times have you done things for other people because you needed that person to give you feedback? So you did things, maybe little things, and then in time they started to take for granted what you did, no matter how little. And then one day you wake up and all you're doing is doing things for other people to get acceptance. You've lost you in your own search. If people are going to like you and respect you, it should not be because of what you do for them. It should be for what you are as a human being. If you're a loving, kind, and thoughtful human being, if you have a warm heart, an open mind, if you're willing to experience life as it comes, and if you're willing to exceed the boundaries of propriety in your own sense of finding self in a positive way, then you don't need anyone's acceptance. And the truth of what you experience will be a free experience. But if you're seeking for honesty and you're also seeking for acceptance, one of those is going to be lost. I don't need to be accepted. There was a time when I felt I did. For the benefit of maintaining credibility, they said you must have degrees, so I went back and got degrees. Then you must have experience in the laboratory, so I went back and got experience in the laboratory. Then you must publish in peer-reviewed journals, so I did that. Do original experiments, I did that. Teach at university, I did that. Present before scientific groups, I did that. And every time I thought I should be accepted, they suddenly said, no, this is another gauntlet, and I'd run that gauntlet. At the end of all of it, nothing I did was acceptable to them in any case, because they didn't give any credibility for anything I did, not once. Then I realized I'm not the one, who should have done this. They didn't benefit, and I should have learned my lesson. Now I don't do anything for acceptance, because I'm just going to be who I am. People can accept it or reject it. Now think of what would change in your life if you simply went through a day honoring who you are instead of what you want people to think of you. How would you be different in your communication? What would you say to people to be different? If you saw someone acting inappropriately at work or in friends, would you bring it to their attention right then and there? If you saw something wrong in society, would you address it? Because if we're not able to address these larger issues, then all we have is our need for self-acceptance. Therefore, we become dishonest. Number 3, who did we want to be? At some point in life, we all wanted to be somebody, right? We all had heroes, and we were motivated, and we were inspired. Well, now, if we wanted to be that person, or wanted to be some person, were we able to? Were we able to wake up one day and realize that what we wanted to be, who we wanted to be, we have become? Because if not, then we live with this forlorn sense of disappointment that, gee, I could have been a somebody, and a stop short. In every man's mind, at some point they've fantasized about being that athlete. The athlete that hits the home run in the 9th inning, last out, that throws the football further. We all have these fantasies. And along the way, some people actually go out there and try to master it. It is better to try to master something that you really feel impassioned by and measure whatever you do against where you were, and every step you took beyond where you started, you can feel the satisfaction that you honored who you were. Then not to do something because of fear of failing, and then live with the resentment that, well, I just kind of accept who I am and that's not me. How do you know that's not you? Did you ever ask yourself, where is a Bill Gates born, and who are all these people that run our lives? They didn't start off running our lives. They didn't start off exceeding in their own life. At some point, they were just as confused or just as passive, just as conditioned as anybody else, but they broke those barriers. It's not about intellect. It's not about genius. It's not about overly assertiveness. It's about the desire to be free. It's not even about making money. Most of the people I've counseled who are very wealthy, they don't care about making more money. What they care about is ways of expressing their inner creativity. And if how they got to where they are is through hard work, the hard work came before the money came. At a certain point, the money just keeps coming beyond what they need, but they didn't wake up one day and someone just didn't make them rich. We forget that long period of time, just like an actor who works for 20 years, mastering their field, when they work as waiters and waitresses, and then one day they get a break, and then 5 years later they're making $15 million a film, if they're so lucky, and then someone says, gee, wouldn't it be nice to be that rich? Well, were you willing to master what they did and sacrifice for as many years as they did? They're not working for the money at that point. They're working because it's a continuation of what they have spent a lifetime mastering, and they're getting benefit from it. But you don't have to do something spectacular to get benefit. Grow a flower in your garden, you see the benefit. Eat something like a tomato that you've grown, it tastes wonderful, there's a benefit. Share love with a pet and watch the pet respond, there's a benefit. Look in someone's eyes you care about and treasure, and look at the sparkle that dances between you, there's a benefit. There's many non-monetary ways, very spiritual ways, metaphysical ways, that we can have a response for our mastery. Then don't master anything and see what you get. What do you get from non-mastery? A non-life. And along the way, the only difference between mastery and non-mastery is the quality of our foundation, our belief system. How many people have not mastered something because they were told it's not your job, it's not your right, you don't have the talent, you don't have the brains, you don't have the skill, you don't have the resources. It's all the things we don't have that keeps us from mastering. And yet, lo and behold, some people who had nothing master it. That's a uniquely individual challenge. You and you alone determine whether or not you're going to master your life, and no one else. Why would you give away that right to other people? There's no age to which you are limited from mastery. Therefore, we can always start over. The good news is you shouldn't be sad because you felt you've passed the time of the primary effort and the primary opportunity. You have not. And now you have to get with it. Number 4, did we fall short? And if we did, how did we cope? When we have some dream, but we do not have the tools in order to master that dream, either we have not developed them on our own or they have not been inspired or given to us, then we generally only go as far as our fear will take us. And in everyone's life, there is what I call the fear zone, between where you want to go and where you're at. Here's where you're at, here's where you want to go. It's like an emotional minefield. You don't know where the mines are placed. But boy, when you do something that if someone's going to judge or be harsh, there's an explosion, and that's your fear line. Almost always you won't go beyond that from then on. Well, I tried it, it didn't work, I'm not going to do it again. Why not? What if you were a baby? You stood up, you fell down, and you said, that's it, I'm never going to get up again. Huh? What if you had diarrhea? That's it, I'm never going to eat again. Right? The whole idea of life is don't look at anything you do as a failure. Merely looking at it as another step in the learning process. So everything becomes a step in mastery. There is no failure. Failure is an artificial construct. That is part of the fault line in belief systems. You should get rid of the words success and failure because they're not real. Completely subjective. Every single thing we do is a series of setbacks or go-aheads. And if we're smart, we learn. Show me a single person that's successful in the sense of society successful, and I'll show you a person who failed to success. Everyone in life fails to success. Everyone. Whether it's a musician or a singer or prodigy. The difference is They've used their setbacks and challenges as a way of learning. It wasn't limiting. In someone else, it's devastating. They stop growing. I had 131 rejections on my book, first book that I ever published. Well, what if I had stopped at 10 or 15 or 30 or 100? I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't have motivated tens of millions of people in the United States and around the world. I was just on television in Russia yesterday. I didn't know it. It's an interview I'd done some time ago that was on their news. And whoever saw it, who might have gotten a new insight, wouldn't have had that. I just never believed that you should allow anything that doesn't work be a marker against what will. This past Saturday in Kingsport, Tennessee, I took a silver medal in the National Masters Championship. The week before that, 5 days before that, I won 2 races, set 2 records within 20 minutes of each other, including going ahead of Don DeNoon, in my opinion, the greatest living master athlete in the United States. And theoretically, I shouldn't have even have tried. If no one's beat him, why should I think I could? But every single thing I'd done that was a learning curve mistake, I simply turned it into a lesson for going further. And then one day, those cumulative lessons of what you learned that don't work for you. And then one day, you cross a finish line and you got the gold. And it's not about beating someone, it's about surrendering yourself. The old me would have been 3 minutes behind. The new me was 3 minutes ahead. This is within a month. The World Games, we brought home a silver medal in the whole world. I was 3 minutes faster this past week in the same race. Had I done that 3 minutes faster in the World Games, I'd have brought home the gold. What was the difference between then and now? I simply spent more time at mastery. Am I faster than other people? No. What I am is, I'm determined within myself to not allow any artificial barriers or anyone tell me what I can't do because of my age or my body size or anything else. And you know what happens when you don't believe anyone else's limiting thoughts about you? Then you only have positive thoughts about you. Eliminate the negative, you have the positive. So if people in your life are not supporting you in a constructive way, stop taking in their energy. Because their energy is coming through your foundation. That's why it hurts. Because they're a part of your foundation. They're from the same foundation. So it reverberates differently. So just disconnect from it. Next, what is sacred to you? We must know what is sacred to us, not just know it, but we must honor it. If every day when you get up, you honor what is sacred to you, then that day is sacred. And if you're not honoring what's sacred, then what are you honoring? Time, responsibility, commitment? What's sacred in that? If I'm counseling someone and they have a month to live, they're going to say, Gary, I need you to keep me alive another 6 months because I got to do more chores at the office. Right? There's still some memos I got to send out. No. They want to honor what's sacred that they hadn't honored. So why don't we just start honoring what's sacred every day? That's the new foundation. The new foundation is based upon strength, not weakness. It's based upon knowing that no matter what happens, no matter what's said, there's nothing ever that's going to shake this foundation. Therefore, you're free to be who you want to be and do the things you wouldn't have done. Surrendering fear is the first step in creating a new foundation, because it's taking a hammer and breaking open the old foundation. And only when you break open the old foundation do you see how rotted out it is. I don't care how you paint it. Take a floor that's termite-ridden and put a carpet on it, it's still termite-ridden. You've got to rip out the old foundation, just like you would in a house, and rebuild it. I've had over 30 bones broken in athletic competition, boxing, karate, basketball, track, football. They're all stronger because they were broken than before. Because you know when you break something, you can repair it with attention you never gave it when you were just maintaining it. Too many things you take for granted. But once something's broken, whether it's a relationship or your health, then you really give it attention. And how often do we really give things attention? Undivided attention, where we don't compromise. We're mastering that which we're giving attention. Master what you honor, master what is sacred, and you will have a foundation that frees you. Number 6. What would you choose if you could not fail? You ever think of that? What if you couldn't fail? What would you choose? I'll bet you'd take more risks, wouldn't you? I'll bet you'd experiment more with your life, wouldn't you? What if you could act like a 6-year-old kid again, where you wake up and you say, today's a wonderful day, let me see what I can do with it. But as adults, we guard everything. In elevators, we don't look at people in the eye, we don't talk with them. We're very careful. Even I live in a baby boomer from hell building, right? All we know about each person is how much they spend on their apartment. And so when I get on the elevator and you look at someone, they go, hi, I go, hi, how are you? And they kind of start to look away. And then suddenly it's looking at the keys, looking at the numbers, and I say, well, you look fine. Oh, okay, thanks. And they go to get off the elevator. Okay, see you later. I said, when? And they scurry off. People are afraid. What are we afraid of? And last, how do we share our aloneness? And what makes aloneness special? Not being lonely. Being alone and being complete. The joy, the happiness of being present in our own lives without the need to clutter it with anyone else and feeling just complete. We work so hard at so many things that when we get a free moment, we almost feel selfish taking it for ourselves. We almost feel we're obligated to share that moment with someone else. Keep the moments for yourself, and in that aloneness, pull back and in proper perspective, see everything and everyone around you in their entirety. Remember, you can't change them and you have no right to, but at least you can see them for what they are. And then we go full circle. As a scientist, I may not even understand what I'm seeing, but I must be honest and simply seeing it for what it is. And if I see people and I see events and I see things, institutions or beliefs that I disagree with, but at least I see the consequence of them, then I'll know what to detach from. And the quality of what I detach from to unclutter my life allows me the freedom to attach with things that are more primal, more authentic, more honest, so that everything else I build upon this foundation has the opportunity to resonate who I am in a healthy and happy way. Thank you very much for watching.